Hello everybody, Mannix here. Got another knife review for you right here, right now. Feel free to subscribe, hit that little bell notification if you do not want to miss weekly knife and gun videos. This is going to be on yet another Ozark trail, the 6679. Filming this very early 2024, picked this up maybe about 3 weeks ago or so. It's a new one for me. It is a liner lock, but I felt it was pretty snazzy looking when I saw it in the packaging. And like a lot of the Ozark trails I've been trying recently, I'm once again very impressed for this price point. It was around $6 if I remember correctly. Let's get the specs out of the way real quick. 7 inches overall length, 3-inch blade, 4-inch handle, just like all the Ozark trails are. This one happens to be tip down right hand carry only, unfortunately, but this type of pocket clip they put on a lot of their knives totally works very well. Loop over. I've seen this pocket clip design for many, many years. Function over form, I suppose. Polypropylene handle scales. Stainless steel liners in there, which are colored red. And then we have a nice little attention to detail right there around the pivot screw in the bolster area. So nice little aesthetic we got going here. It's very edgelord, black and red, Darth Maul, just evil death guy looking. It's just cool. I like it. Lanyard hole right here, I like the triangle shape. Again, kind of just mimics the pattern we have going with the knife here. It's very cool. Some people don't like that design. Some people just like it if the handle scale overlaps the entire thing and they just drill a hole in there. They think it looks more clean. To each their own. I kind of don't mind this look either, the kind of exposed technical look we have. It's very cool. Very stylish knife. It looks like it has an actual proprietary design. They didn't just kind of slap this together to make it just function over form. They actually tried to give this knife a look, and I really like that about it. Blade's very cool looking too. Very interesting shape. Modified sheep's foot? Regular sheep's foot? What the hell would you call this thing? I'm going to call it a sheep's foot, but I could be wrong. Feel free to correct me. It's very interesting though. I call it modified because it's not quite a sheep's foot. We have a lot of belly going here. It curves back upward, but because we have such an abrupt curve downward towards the tip up here, it's making me think a sheep's foot, but we have somewhat of an acute point actually. Very, very versatile design. It's a relatively skinny blade. It's a skinny knife. Thumb studs and flippers. The flipper works decently well. I'd give it maybe like a B+. You don't need a wrist flick generally. It's going to depend on how oiled up it is, what the pivot screw tension is on yours specifically, but I just kind of give it a slight wrist flick anyway, and then it opens up every single time when I use it. Thumb studs. They do work every single time, flicks out with no wrist movement needed, very well executed. It's not on ball bearings as far as I know, it doesn't feel like it, they're probably just nylon washers or something. They look like nylon, could be wrong, but they're nice and smooth, very, very smooth action on here, I actually really like it. There's jimping. Look at that, jimping on the spine of the blade. There's jimping on the flipper too. Ironically, there's no jimping on the liner, however, but not a big deal. It seems to disengage pretty much every single time, so I have no complaints there. I love this texturing they have on here. There's another Ozark trail with the shaft lock in it. I can't remember the model name offhand, 6.8 something, but it had this exact type of texture on it, which I'm assuming is the exact same material, polypropylene. We're going to talk about that. It's kind of like a light medium traction G10. It feels a lot like that. I really, really am a huge fan of it. It's not so sticky and grippy that it feels like a really rough, aggressive sandpaper, and it feels like it's ripping up your skin, but it's not so slick it's going to fly out of your hands when you're sweaty or something either. So very, very nice texture on here. Absolutely love it. It's nice and warm to the touch. Blackened blade, if you haven't noticed already. Most likely it's just some cheap paint. It feels almost like it's lubricated. It could be sort of a Teflon type something or other. Not really sure what the coating is, so expect that to wear, but for the $6 or so price tag, it's not really an issue. Let's just weigh this bad boy. I'm going to guess 2.47 ounces. Shot in the dark. 2.44. I swear to God, I did not weigh this off camera. I was so close. So close. It's basically 2.5 ounces. A little bit lighter than 2.5 ounces. Very good for a 3-inch blade. Featherweight light for that, even with these full stainless steel liners. I wonder if that has something to do with the polypropylene handle scales we have there, as opposed to them being GFN, FRN, glass and plastic mixed together. It's just plastic. It's a very, very hard plastic. Polypropylene's known as the steel of plastics, but it's still just plastic. It's not going to even rival FRN that we're more used to in the knife industry. But I've said this many times in all the other Ozark Trail reviews I've done recently, I have not heard of or ever seen or experienced any issues with these handle scales cracking despite just being polypropylene. If you're slamming this against concrete, against a sidewalk, against steel or something, yeah, maybe it will crack. But if you're using this knife as it's intended to be used, I don't think you're going to have any problems with it. Plate steel most likely is a 3CR13 or a 440A. I'm not really sure. I never got any verification, but from other people's tests and from my own experience, that's all I can assume. It's something around that softness and that performance. Not great, but these actually have okay heat treatments on them, especially for the sub $10 range, around $5 or so. Pretty impressive. Not too bad. I did not touch this up at all, but I haven't used it that much either. I didn't feel like I needed to test this specifically because I've tested a lot of the other Ozark trails as it is. That's after some very, very light use, basically almost a brand new cutting edge. Totally adequate. There's some wee-wahs there. It's certainly not Spyderco or Cold Steel level cutting edge by any means, but certainly an A-OK utility edge. That's certainly sharp enough. Again, you can touch it up yourself. So totally adequate for the price point. Yeah, it'll dull on you pretty quickly, but it'll sharpen pretty quickly. That's just how soft steels work. So we have fast deployment on here. We have two options. We have the flipper, we have the thumb studs. These thumb studs are relatively tiny. They're actually pretty small, but I don't mind the design. They're cylindrical, rounded at the top. They work okay. Nice and soft for the fat of your thumb. Overall, the ergos on this are pretty good. I like the nice little choil we have right here for our index finger, and then it's continued by the flipper right there. And then it's kind of beveled too. Fattens out here, then it tapers. Then we have sort of like a polygon design down here on the butt. Again, I like the jimping on there. It's actually okay. It's somewhat rounded, actually. It's not super sharp, but it actually works okay. It's certainly better than not having it at all. It's not like my thumb's freely sliding around it. It actually kind of locks my thumb in a little bit. Deployment's okay. I wouldn't say it's excellent. You really do have to give it a nice positive input there. I mean, a lot of these knives coming out these days, even around the size, they're on ball bearing tracks. They're executed so well. The detent's perfect, and they deploy flawlessly every single time without any wrist movements. Sometimes you gotta have to get it going a little bit, but that's normal for cheap knives. And even if you don't use a flipper, you still got the thumb studs, and as far as those are concerned, they work perfectly fine. Lockup, good. There is some movement here. I can feel the liner moving just a little bit. It could be tightened, and I assume that would kind of fix that up and down play I'm getting there. It's not like there's any space in there to move. The geometry of it, I think, is good. The problem is it's not a very tight lockup, so I am getting just a hair of up and down play, but it's really not a big deal. Most of the Ozark trails and knives, even in under like the $30, $35 range, do have a little bit of movement in them. And hell, I've bought knives that were $90, $100 that had some movement in them as well. So I'm not going to complain too much about that. Almost no side to side in this current configuration I have it in. Of course, you can adjust it as you wish. If you want it to always fly out the handle with no wrist movement whatsoever, that probably will fix that if you want to loosen it. But if you want that lockup to be as tight as possible, it's not too bad at this current tension I have it at. So deployment is good, not excellent, but I'm going to say it's good deployment, good lockup, not excellent. Ergos are pretty good, although the only issue I have is up here, these liners, because they're exposed past the handle scale, it feels slightly uncomfortable. It's kind of sharp and kind of raw on my thumb. I don't like how these liners are exposed up here. I would much just prefer if the scales were flush to the liners. It would be a little bit nicer on my thumb, but it's kind of rough on there. Not a huge fan of that. But if you put your thumb up here onto the jimping, you negate that anyway, so also not a big deal. Carries just fine. Nothing too special going on with the pocket clip here. I kind of wish they went with a proprietary design to match the rest of the really cool aesthetic we have going here. It looks more expensive than it really is. It might look like, I don't know, a $30 knife or something, despite being only about $6. So I like the aesthetic we have going here. It's one of the cooler looking Ozark trails I've seen. It doesn't just look like a functional tool. It looks like they're trying to give it some style. I like the crimson, red, and black. One thing that's interesting, this little dimple they have in the handle scale. I'm not really sure why it's there. I mean, if I hold a knife like this, I suppose it's a little something for my thumb to kind of sink into, but I don't know why I would hold a knife like that. I don't know why anyone would. I would just hold it like this. Or perhaps like this. Reverse grip is just fine. It is weird though, the pocket clip dips into that little portion that's sunken down here on this side of the handle scale is also on this side of the handle scale. So the pocket clip, right where it lands, it's in that hole. I suppose it's supposed to be tighter and fit more safely in your pocket, I guess. Maybe that's what they were going for. I don't notice really an improvement, but that's just how it is. Not really a good thing, not necessarily a bad thing either. One thing I don't like, and a lot of knife companies do this, not just cheap ones, but the flipper, it kind of looks like it's just jutting out with no real rhyme or reason to it. It doesn't look like it's perfectly fitting. So as you can see, when my index finger slips into the choil right here, there's kind of a gap, and I can push up against it, but now my finger is somewhat in an awkward spot right here, where it's rounded out rather than rounded in, where the index finger is actually supposed to go. Not a big deal, but as far as attention to detail goes, that is somewhat of an issue. But aesthetically, maybe that's not what they were going for. No, it looks nice and rounded when it's in the closed position. It looks really, really cool. Very cool looking knife for the money. But overall, it's not one of the best Ozark trails I've had. Some of the Ozark trails I've had lately are just blowing me away. Like for $5 or so, like wow, this knife's amazing for that cost. This knife's just kind of a middle ground. I like the way it looks. Ergos are okay, lockup's okay, deployment's okay. Functionally, all in all, it's not bad at all. If you just wanted a pocket knife and you happen to like the way it looks, you want something nice and lightweight with a little bit of texturing on there. There's jimping on here, so tactical blade, yeah, sure, why not? You could totally flex it into that role. I like the blade shape. I think it's cool. Totally not a bad knife at all. It's just got a handful of little dings here and there that I don't think are fantastic. If you like the way it looks and you've been impressed and happy with a lot of the Ozark trails you've been trying out lately from Walmart, yeah, you can give this one a shot. You might get a better one than me. Maybe yours will deploy better. It might have a better, tighter detent on that liner. Because again, with like cheaper knives like this, quality control can be an issue. I just wish it had maybe a slightly better lockup. I wish these liners up here were not exposed like that. I don't think that's entirely comfortable. And hell, I just wish this was an axis lock. I wish this was a shaft lock, not a liner lock at all, but whatever. I wish it was tip up. But that's pretty much it. I'm kind of just nitpicking at that point. Everything functionally is actually okay, not bad at all. So overall, great knife for the money. Not much else. Do you have this knife? What do you think about it? Just by looking at it, what do you think about it? Any advantages and or disadvantages I may have missed in this video? Please let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. Mannix out.